Hello and welcome to my presentation on the Stop Adani campaign. The Carmichael mine is essentially a mine which is infiltrating the Great Barrier Reef and causing detriment to the environment along the Great Barrier Reef via culture and environmental degradation. So essentially through this campaign you will see this clip in the presentation. And basically that clip is an overview which is explaining the coal mine undergoing several illegal transactions and occurrences, and they have bribed their way out of trouble through government and legal bindings, which is all obviously under the rug. It also discusses the serious debt that the company's in and determining the potential ulterior motive that brings them to Australia. So moving forward, we're going on to Chia and Sinnott's 9-step theory, which is talking through the 9 stages of a relations campaign. Excuse me. So essentially we're working through Mahoney's honeycomb of theory, and we're looking at a persuasive campaign because we're trying to persuade our audiences to go against the Adani coal mine, which is essentially going to persuade our audiences to sign a petition and deter them from obviously allowing it to build and grow. So this would be moving through the elaboration likelihood model. And the elaboration likelihood model is described as how our viewers are going to be receptive to information and how likely they are to elaborate on that information, and whether that's through the central or peripheral route. So the key questions that we're going to ask externally for our research is our audience more likely or less likely, more likely to utilise the central route or the peripheral route of processing when looking at information. Our second question is going to be asking the key messages that are conveyed to encourage our audience to sign the petition. And third question is, what is our target market going to be in order to gain the most signatures? So our internal questions that we're going to be asking is, what are the key factors that are associated with Adani that are posing environmental threats? And what are the key factors that are associated with Adani that are causing them to act unethically? So we're going to ask those through desk research and market research. So looking at the strength of our campaign, we're looking through the SWOT analysis. Through our strengths, the research should present key information that will make it easier to utilise the ELM model, and that will persuade the audience. We have to make sure that it We have to make sure that it's constructed on solid evidence and seems scientifically sound. And we also have to make sure the campaign has an potential for endorsement from scientists, political leaders, and lobbyists. So the weaknesses associated with our campaign are going to correspond heavily with the allegations made against Adani, and we have to ensure that our research really solidifies that stance. So if we can't find that research that does leave a loophole for Adani to come in and sweep us from under, it will leave the campaign unsupported. An opportunity that we're finding is we have the potential to really increase the cultural validity of the area. There's a spokesperson from the Wangan and Jagalingo tribe, Adrian, and he suggests that this is about cultural integrity, and that's why that they can't get let go of the mine. So that really provides an opportunity for the Australian public to get behind the Aboriginal culture and really try to reserve the significance of that area. A threat that we have is Adani undercutting our exposure, and that's if we don't find the right solidified research and they use that against our campaign, and it actually reinforces their campaign. So moving on, our goal setting, which is step 3 of the 9-step process, is to stop Adani from building a larger coal mine on the Great Barrier Reef by having 500,000 signed signatures on the e-petition by the end of a 3-month campaign. So our way of moving through this moves on to step 4, and that will speak about our 3 objectives. Now I've gone for an awareness, an acceptance, and an action objective. Our awareness objective is increasing public awareness on the environmental effects of the reef via a 3-month campaign which is generated through several forms of media. The acceptance objective is having an e-petition which has over 500,000 signatures which will sign against the Carmichael mine. And the action objective will be increasing the concept of corporate social responsibility, and that will be pushed towards key stakeholders and driving an anti-corporate influence through increasing a 10% political mass media reach. So identifying our key audiences and publics. We're going to move through 3 key spokespeople. Now we're going to take someone from the scientific community, someone from the Wangan and Jangalingu community, and a political leader and activist. So Dr. Carl is going to be our scientific influence. Our community member is going to be Adrian, which is a part of her campaign already, so we're just going to cross-collaborate with them. And our political leader and activist will hopefully be somebody from the Greens Party, and if not from a more socialist point of view, in order to drive the economic validity of this campaign. Now our publics are going to be the government publics, which are going to be all political bodies that are associated with the government control, external publics, all publics outside of that, Aboriginal groups, Queensland overall, mining groups that have key influence within this issue and industry, activists, so political, environmental, social activists, all being part of this public map, and also targeting the 4 major banks which have been mentioned in previous news campaigns, that perhaps they have a little bit more to do with the success of the Adani coal mine thus far. So moving on from there, we're going to develop strategies. Now those strategies we've worked through a few different areas. So we're working through special events, uncontrolled media, interactive media, controlled media, sponsorship, and building alliances. Now, moving through those, we move on to monitoring. We want to see by the end of this campaign, we want to have each month around a 33% control over ABC media. And that will cover the political shame and environmental instability of the mine, and if it's allowed to go through, the political shame of allowing them to destroy the environment without haste. We want to have over 200,000 signed per month, and that's just an average, and that is aiming for as many signatures per month and carrying that throughout the whole campaign, so we really need to maintain that coverage throughout that time. We want to see over 250 media presences within the first month and consistently pushing that 250 presences throughout the 3-month campaign. We want to have, over the 3 months, 1 million likes and comments over our clips, 600,000 shares of our video content, and 3.2 million views of our video content, which is really increasing our validity to the masses. So essentially our reason for doing that is because we're pushing an e-petition, and therefore we want to reach this public, and our way of monitoring that will be through market research on social media's presence. So moving on from here, we're going to devise our tactics through the Asana app, which I have here. Now essentially you've got the layout here, which I have tried to do, but it didn't allow for me to do that, so I'm just going to talk you through it. So basically we've got the political representative will release once a week in Parliament House, and that will be on being an activist within the Parliament House. So there's the ultimate speech in Parliament House, and that will be the first speech, which will essentially generate free media. The creation of free media through press conferences and media releases through that speech. Continuing to gain traction through media releases and pushing through particular websites, that would be the ABC, Project, and etc. And that would be aiming for at least 30,000 signatures on that first speech alone. So we have the Aboriginal representative. from the community, and we would like to see them released on things like such as Today Tonight, morning releases, evening news, 60 Minutes, The Project, Hack on Triple J. The reason for these is because it gives that cultural relativism, and we feel as though that is pushing towards a target market that we would like to reach. And we find that they're more central route processing in the younger generation through these savvy more styles of representation rather than in a press room. And our last but not least is the Dr. Carl media release. Now, Dr. Carl is obviously a very well-respected individual within the community, and therefore we believe he would work across all boards. So he could work within all forms of media that we've mentioned. The controlled media, that was in sponsorship. So controlled media would be the social media release, and that would be the creation of an e-petition campaign which would work through 20,000 people in the first week, and then aiming for 50k in the first 2 weeks, and then progressing from there quite quickly. Special events will be the ultimate walk marathon, which would essentially be everybody like creating a campaign where people would walk along the whole Great Barrier Reef as one, and essentially uniting them through that and creating like donations and everything like that. Mainly not essentially for donations, but more for awareness. And then you've got uncontrolled media, which would be associating all the press releases and free media that will be generated through those forms of media. Now, our evaluation of this one would essentially see that within the first 2 months we would have our signatures of 500,000, and essentially from there we would like to see that we have to push this further. And as a general, we're actually going to push this as is at the moment. However, if all goes to plan, then by the second month we will need to reevaluate. Alright, that's all from me. Thank you very much. Ugh. Dude, that's so